Ora la parola al Presidente della Camera dei Rappresentanti del Congresso degli Stati Uniti d'America, Nancy Pelosi. Presidente Pelosi, prego.
Buongiorno. Buongiorno. It's an honor to be here to bring the greetings of the Congress of the United States to this important meeting of the G20 Parliamentary Leaders, the Summit on People, Planet, and Prosperity. It's a special honor to be here with Prime Minister, His Excellency Mario Draghi. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for your leadership on the coronavirus, on climate, and so many other challenges of our global community. Thank you, President Elisabetta Castellata, for your leadership, your hospitality here today, and the wonderful role that you play as a woman and for women as President of the Italian Senate. Speaker Fico, thank you for the invitation to participate in this meeting. Friends, this is the fourth meeting I will be having in recent time with Speaker Fico on the topics of the summit. Our colleague from the UK, Mr. Hoyle, can attest that we've all learned a great deal from him in our meetings. It's always a welcomed opportunity for me to come to Italy to celebrate the firm bonds between our two countries, the United States and Italy, which is rooted in our shared history, values, and interest, and global security. And personally, as the first Italian-American Speaker of the House of Representatives, I take special pride in the Italian-American community in America that is a strong link in U.S.-Italy relations. It's a privilege to be with leaders of the Parliament of the G20 and guest countries for this important summit to discuss the greatest challenges of our time and the opportunity to address them. In that spirit, I quote President Biden's words spoken last month at the UN General Assembly. We stand, in my view, at an inflection point in history. Our security, our prosperity, and our very freedoms are interconnected as never before. And so we must work together as never before. And I'll just talk about America for a moment. In the early days of our revolution, in the darkest days of the revolution, a philosopher and patriot, Thomas Paine, said, "The times have found us. The times have found us. The times found them to declare independence, to fight a war and win and establish the American democracy." The times had found them. Nearly 100 years later, the times found Abraham Lincoln to fight and win a war to keep that American democracy as one country. In the next century, in the 20th century, the Second World War broke out around the world. The times found leaders of the free world to become allies to fight evil and make the world safe for liberty and peace. And today, the times have found us, each and every one of us, to save the people from COVID and to save the planet from the existential threat of the climate crisis. Now not that we place ourselves in the category of greatness of those who went before, but we recognize the urgency of the challenge that we face, and we must address it. On the climate crisis, many of the parliaments here have long recognized the urgency and have led the way on action. Many of you have done that already. You have faced the reality of the climate crisis in your own countries. We, the G20 countries, are the world's largest polluters, producing, well, maybe up to 75% of the emissions. And we have a responsibility to act. We have a great opportunity to do so. The G720s could mitigate the vast majority of climate change, keeping warming to 1.7 degrees Celsius if we act now, and we must. When our nations meet in Glasgow next month, and thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the hospitality of your country, Mr. Speaker of the UK, and the cooperation of Italy in the G26, the COP26. When we go there, we must bring our highest ambitions to the table. We must not only meet our Paris goals, we must beat them in order to limit warming to 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. In America, under President Biden, we have committed to reducing emissions by 50% below 2005 levels by 2030, and we work toward achieving a clean energy economy with net zero emissions by 2050. These are goals that we all share. We must, though, join together to meet this goal around the world. Congratulations to many of your countries who are already taking action to meet these goals. We can certainly learn from you. Working with President Biden, the United States Congress is taking action. We are working on the enactment of the Biden Build Back Better agenda, which contains the most dramatic climate action of any legislation in the history of our country. It would be a dereliction of duty to pass any infrastructure and building legislation that fails to respond to the urgency of the climate crisis. This is about the children, leaving them a world in which they can be healthy, thrive, and reach their fulfillment. It's always about the children, in my view. President Biden, in America, we're proud to have a president who was one of the first leaders in Congress to advance climate action as early as 1986. He brags about that a lot. President Biden respects science and understands the urgency, which is essential also for combating the coronavirus pandemic. 18 months ago, in March 2020, the world watched sadly as Italy experienced the beginning of the worst COVID outbreak in Europe. We pray for every life lost here and in each of our nations, lives taken by this vicious virus. As we do so, we stand united only in grief, but in gratitude for the courage of Italy under Prime Minister Draghi, whose example helped rally the international community to strong, coordinated actions. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. And we know that globally, much more needs to be done. Needs to be done, both in all these areas. Nearly 2 years into this pandemic, we know that the most effective way to crush the virus is with safe and effective vaccines. And let me be clear, the Biden administration and U.S. Congress believe that there is no choice between vaccinating Americans and vaccinating the world. We must do both. We can leave no one behind. Under the leadership of President Biden, America is delivering more vaccine doses abroad, and we are sending over 1 billion doses to communities and countries around the world, at least 1 billion. Especially as Delta continues, we must work together in this fight. None of us is safe until all of us are safe. I just want to go back to the climate issue for a moment, because as the distinguished Madam President has said, and Speaker Rico has referenced, and Prime Minister as well, this is an issue that we have to have fairness about. Equity, it's a justice issue. And as Madam President said, women were affected drastically, economically, in every way during in the course of the pandemic, and still are. So when we are looking at all of this, and we're talking about building back better in America, we're talking about building back better with women. With women, many things that exist in developed countries that we do not have in the United States: child care, early childhood education, family and medical leave, the list goes on, home health care, and the rest. So we are recognizing that over 4 million women lost their jobs. Only half of them are able to be back into the job market because they need help with their children and other health care providing that they do at home. So we see the role of women. And I thank you both all for the reference to the women in Afghanistan. I wear this ring made by them. We carry them in our hearts, a constant, not that we need a reminder, but a constant flow of influence from them and inspiration from them. It was a wonderful thing that happened for 20 years nearly of women and girls being educated. But we must always shine the bright light. As in a time of COVID, in a time of a climate crisis, there have to be opportunities for these women to succeed. Because this climate crisis it's a priority for us. For me, I believe that this is God's creation and we have a moral responsibility to be good stewards of it. But if you don't even share that religious view, we all agree that we have a moral responsibility to our children to have this planet, hand this planet to them in an important way. It's a health issue. Clean air, clean water, clean water, clean water. We keep emphasizing that for them. It's a jobs issue, an economic issue, good green jobs to bring people in, more people, lift more people into prosperity through these new technologies. It's a national security issue. Security experts tell us that this is a national security issue because we must prevent migration and conflict that stems from the competition for resources and habitat that is engendered by the climate crisis. And then once again, back to a moral issue. We have to be good stewards, but we have to do so in a just way, justice for the most vulnerable communities among us, especially in the indigenous communities where we have been hit first, where they have been hit first and hardest. As Speaker Fico said, we will be talking about this more in the days ahead. So again, we have a lot on our plate as we have had these parliamentary meetings from time to time. If you go back a few years, we would not have had COVID, but we do. And we must address it with justice and equity. And if we have for a long time had the climate crisis, some in denial about it, all of us must accept the science and also the governance to deal with it. So again, as Thomas Paine has said, the times have found us. We know that it's about time. Everything's about time. The time to crush the virus and save the planet. Thank God for the vaccines and the blessings of science that have brought that to us. Working together, the G20 nations must accept this challenge. We must rise to the urgency of the moment. I have no doubt that we will. And we must advance a better world for the people, for the planet, so that many more people can participate in prosperity. And coming back to the women again, we say in America, when women succeed, America succeeds. You could say that of any country in the world, and you can certainly say that globally. So we have an opportunity to have these discussions. I want to again thank our hosts for their hospitality, Mr. Prime Minister, Madam President, Mr. Speaker. Viva Italia, God bless America, and God bless all of the countries who are participating here today. Thank you so much to share some thoughts of the Congress of the United States.
Grazie.